X, I say LO. You can't do what I do, that's just something you don't.
Hey, what's up guys, TechTime here and I'm back again with a brand new video. So before I begin this one, as always, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, you know what to do. Make sure you subscribe and also leave a thumbs up. It helps out the channel more than you think. So with that being said, today is going to be a long-awaited comparison that a lot of people actually requested, which is the comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A25 versus the Galaxy A54 5G. Now, mind you that these phones have different price points. The Galaxy A25 MSRP is $299. The A54, while I know the price for it has went down, the MSRP for it when it came out was $469. So let's think about that for a second while I'm doing this comparison. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about essentially is going to be the design. So basically, beginning with the Galaxy A25 itself, the Samsung Galaxy A25 takes a kind of a different approach in design, right? It's a more refined version than the A54. However, it does use kind of a cheaper material. So it uses plastic instead of the premium glass material that the A54 uses, but that's okay. So it does have also like these little dots on the back that are really nothing. They're just there for strictly aesthetics. This phone also, because the back has this matte finish to it, it does catch smudges kind of crazy, but it actually, I kind of prefer it more than the glossy material. Okay, so on the back also you do have the triple camera setup, which we will definitely discuss later on in the video. If you look at the sides of the phone, you'll get a couple of things. First of all, you do have your power/fingerprint sensor and your volume up and down, and you also have this kind of curved indentation that shows where the power button and the volume up and down are. On the bottom of the phone, you get a couple of ports. So you do have your USB-C port that does support up to 25 watt of fast charging, your microphone, your headphone jack, as well as a bottom facing speaker. On the back hand side, again, you also, so basically that's the entirety of the story behind this design of the Galaxy A25. Switching the story here and talking about the A54's design, it uses kind of a more premium material. They do look a little bit similar. However, in my opinion, the A25 is cleaner as far as design, but as far as material and build quality, that easily goes to the Galaxy A54. So glass on the back, you also have the triple camera setup with your LED flash. Again, more on that later on. Your power button/volume up and down, which are more clicky and more tactile than the A25 buttons. And also, if you look at the sides is made out of plastic and not metal. On the bottom, you don't get a headphone jack. However, you do get a fast charging USB-C port, same charging speed as the A25, which is 25 watt, and your bottom facing speaker. Overall, the design of these phones are, I don't want to say similar. I would say that the A25 is more of a refined version. However, the A54 does use higher quality material. So as far as the display goes, they both have a 6.5 inch. Well, okay, so the Galaxy A25 does have a 6.5 inch, whereas the Galaxy A54 has a 6.4 inch. So the Galaxy A25 has a kind of specs of a 2340 by 1080p as far as the display. You also get 1000 nits of peak brightness, 120 Hz of refresh rate, and overall the display is 84.2% screen to body ratio. It is Super AMOLED, very high quality, and honestly this is kind of this phone's best asset in my opinion. The display on here is definitely something that Samsung did not skimp out, even though that this phone is $299. Flipping the story a little bit, let's talk about the Galaxy A54's display. So again, you have a 6.4 inch display, 2340 by 1080p, so similar resolution. You do get 1000 nits of peak brightness. You also get the support of HDR10 Plus, which is not found on the A25, and it is slightly, and it does also have your 120 Hz refresh rate. The screen to body ratio is 82.9%. So mainly I would say this, when putting these phones side by side, you can tell that the kind of displays are very similar. It's kind of hard to tell which is which just by looking at it. I do feel like the Galaxy A54's display is a little bit cleaner, especially with the camera cutout being really small versus that raindrop notch that we'll see on the A25. And the bezels to me look a little bit more cleaner on the A54, even though technically the A25 does have a higher screen to body ratio. Essentially, the big difference here between these two phones is that the A54 does support HDR10+. So if that's a priority to you, then the A54's display kind of wins. Moving on to the performance, the Galaxy A25 has the following spec sheet. So you do have the Exynos 1280 based on a 5nm architecture. It is octa-core. You have the Mali G68 for GPU, 128GB of storage, and 6GB of base RAM. As far as the Galaxy A54 goes, it does have the Exynos 1380 based on a 5nm architecture octa-core chip, and it does also have the Mali G68 for GPU. The model that I have on me has 128GB of storage and only 4GB of RAM. So 2 more gigs of RAM on the Galaxy A25 compared to the base model of the A54. And basically, essentially, I want to say this: when it comes to the processing power, the A54 is faster. So in benchmarks, it did score higher than the Galaxy A25 5G. Not dramatically higher, but high enough to, I would say, kinda show its strength. As far as RAM management and RAM itself, the Galaxy A25 does have an advantage in that regard. But what I noticed in that the performance on the A54 what I noticed is that the performance on the A54 was far more consistent than the performance on the Galaxy A25. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. As far as like RAM management and things like that, the Galaxy A25 does have the A54 beat. But when it comes to the daily tasks like opening up small apps like the phone app, the web browser, and even like messaging apps, social media, things like that, the lighter apps, then you can't really tell the difference between both of these phones. So even when you put them side by side and see which one is faster, it becomes kind of hard to tell. So keep that in mind again when you're making your purchasing decision. Also, battery life on both of these devices were extremely similar. Next up is the fingerprint sensor. So the Galaxy A54 does have an in-display fingerprint sensor that works fairly well. It can be inconsistent at times, but when it does work, it works well. It's not as fast as the Galaxy A25. So the A25 does win the speed in the fingerprint by a lot. So it's almost instantaneous. So you put your finger and boom, you're in the phone. So it's way faster than the Galaxy A54. So next category we have to talk about is the camera. So both of these phones do have a 50 megapixel main sensor. They both do have an ultra wide and they both do have a macro sensor. However, the picture quality of the A54 is far more superior than the Galaxy A25. So the A54 produces more of a saturated pictures, colors pop a little bit more. It handles way better dynamic range than the Galaxy A15. And the pictures of the A25, not to say that they're bad, they're still fairly decent. It's just they're not as good as the picture quality of the A54. So the A25 does have kind of good picture quality and the dynamic range is fair. The bokeh effect and the focus on here is fairly quick. The video quality is actually surprisingly well, but unfortunately for it, the A54 is just on a little bit of a different category. So the pictures on the A54, like I mentioned, do pop out a little bit more. They look cleaner in my opinion, a little bit more saturated, especially if you take pictures that has a lot of colors. In some scenarios it does overexpose, but again, the focus and the bokeh is really well calibrated. The dynamic range on here is also fairly well. Low light on both of these phones, I would immediately pick the A54 over the A25. The A25 low light performance is just not up to par, and both of these phones do have 4K recording. However, what I found out is that the Galaxy A54's 4K recording looks a little bit more manageable than the 4K recording on the A25 that almost looks like a upscaled 1080p video. So not really that good 4K recording on the A25 compared to the A54. Okay, so if I were to give a conclusion on both of these devices, here's what it would be. So the Galaxy A54 is an older model, obviously, and the Galaxy A25 does give you a cleaner design, even though the quality of materials are lower. However, if I were to pick one right now, I would go the route of the A25, and here's why. So the A25 is, based on MSRP, is $269 cheaper. You get a good display, you still get a decent camera, not as good as the A54, but still a decent one. The specs are really similar, and overall just a cleaner device. Which means that if my budget is only $300 and I don't want to spend that $469 price tag, then the A25 makes it a little bit easier for me to choose. However, if I were to say that in this moment where the A54 is around 350 bucks, I would definitely spend the $50 and get the A54 before I would get the A25. So with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you found this video useful at all, let me know, leave a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to the channel. More content is coming soon. I took like a 3-day break, but I'm back and let's get the show going again. So thank you all so much for watching, and again, I will definitely catch you guys in the next video. Leave your comments below. Tell me what you think. All right, see you guys later.